Hey Reddit, John here. If someone told me a year ago that I'd be penning down this roller coaster of a story, I'd have laughed it off. But here we are. So, buckle up, because this one's wild. Now, to understand the depth of the situation, you've got to know how it all started. It was one of those classic rainy days in Edinburgh. You know, the type where the rain drizzles down, just lightly enough that it's almost romantic, but just heavy enough to warrant an umbrella. The streets had that fresh rain scent, and the cobblestones glistened with tiny puddles reflecting the gray sky. Most folks dashed about, but not me. I was in no hurry, completely engrossed in the beauty of the rain. I remember I was trying to take a picture of the castle from this particular angle when I bumped into someone. Looking down, I saw this girl, Olivia, on the ground. Her papers all scattered, her umbrella flipped inside out. But what caught my attention was her reaction. She was laughing. Not embarrassed or angry, just genuinely laughing at the mess we'd created. We got to talking, and there was this instant connection. It's crazy. It felt like I'd known her for ages. She had these piercing blue eyes that seemed to dance when she spoke, and a laugh that was so contagious, I found myself chuckling along even when nothing was particularly funny. Olivia was studying art history and had a deep love for Edinburgh's architecture. She showed me the city through her eyes that day, and I was utterly captivated, both by her and the stories she told. Our dates were straight out of a rom-com. Picnics in Princes Street gardens, late-night walks along the Royal Mile, sharing stories, dreams, and churros from that tiny stall near the Scottish National Gallery. It felt like fate had thrown us together. When I proposed only a few months later, under the twinkling fairy lights of Circus Lane, she said yes without hesitation. Our friends said we were mad, rushing things, but it felt right, you know? We were young, in love, and had dreams as vast as the sky. The wedding was a small, intimate affair, but brimming with genuine happiness. That beginning, it was like something out of a fairy tale. Little did I know that every story has its twists and turns. But that's for later. All right, Reddit, this is where the gut feeling started to creep in, even though I didn't fully realize it at the time. After the fairy tale start, life began settling into a sort of rhythm. We were newlyweds, figuring out how to live together, sharing our space and our lives. The fun part? Getting to know all of Olivia's friends. She had this close-knit group from college, and they'd meet every other week and I'd occasionally join in. There was this one friend of hers, Zara, who always stood out. Fiery redhead, incredibly sharp wit, and always seemed to have a protective aura around Olivia. One day, after one of those dinner get-togethers, I was helping clean up when Zara cornered me in the kitchen. She looked serious, almost concerned, and I remember thinking she was going to talk about some diet or kitchen hack. But no. She leaned in, and in a hushed tone that I could barely hear over the clamor of the party, she whispered, "John, Olivia isn't who you think she is." I blinked, taken aback. Was this some sort of joke? I chuckled awkwardly, trying to brush it off, thinking maybe this was some weird way of hers to break the ice. But the look on Zara's face was dead serious. She continued, "Just be careful, okay? Watch out for signs." Now, I'll admit, alarm bells did ring in my head, but I immediately pushed them aside. I thought maybe Zara was just being overly protective, or perhaps she had some unresolved issues with Olivia. Besides, I trusted Olivia. Our love story felt too real, too raw to be tainted by whatever Zara was hinting at. I gave Zara a tight smile and nodded, saying, "Thanks for the concern, but I trust Olivia with all my heart." Zara just looked at me with sad eyes, as if she wished she could say more but was bound by some unspoken promise. That night, as I lay in bed next to Olivia, her rhythmic breathing lulling me to sleep, I couldn't shake off Zara's words, but every time doubt crept in, I'd brush it away. Love, after all, was about trust, right? But Reddit, as you'll come to see, those words planted a seed that would grow into an overhanging cloud of doubt. So, Reddit, the thing about trust is that once there's even a tiny crack in its foundation, everything else seems a little off-kilter. I hate to admit it, but those words from Zara, they stuck. And perhaps it was that whisper of doubt that made me notice things I would have otherwise overlooked. Fast forward a few weeks, and it was a Saturday morning. Alicia had this ritual of heading out to her favorite cafe every Saturday to catch up on her reading. She'd get this massive cup of chai latte, immerse herself in a book, and just escape for a while. I'd often teased her about her sacred weekend ritual, but deep down, I loved how passionate she was about her little routines. That morning, she left her bag on the kitchen table in her hurry. She called out, laughing, "If I forget my head one day, could you remember to pack that for me too?" I remember laughing at her adorable clumsiness. After she left, I decided to be the good husband and pack up her essentials, her wallet, her book, and her favorite pen. But as I was doing so, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic at the bottom of her bag. I pulled out a shimmering necklace. It was delicate, with a sparkling pendant that had an intricate design I didn't recognize. It was beautiful, but it was also entirely unfamiliar. I had never seen it on Alicia, and I certainly hadn't gifted it to her. My first thought, maybe it was a family heirloom or something she'd bought recently. Later that evening, as we settled in with some takeaway and a movie, I casually brought it up. "Hey, I found this necklace in your bag. It's pretty. New?" She looked momentarily taken aback and then replied, "Oh, that? It's from my aunt. She gave it to me last week when I visited her." She quickly took it from my hand and set it aside. But, Reddit, something felt off. It was in the split second of hesitation before she answered. Or maybe the way she avoided eye contact just then. Or maybe it was my now slightly suspicious mind overanalyzing. But it felt like there was something she wasn't telling me. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I told myself Zara's words were just playing tricks on my mind, and there was a perfectly reasonable explanation for the necklace. Yet, as the night wore on and as Alicia snuggled up to me, the weight of that necklace felt like an anchor, pulling me down into a sea of doubt. All right, Reddit, things started spiraling from here, and I felt like I was in one of those mystery thriller movies. In the days following the necklace incident, I tried to get back to our normal rhythm. We laughed, made plans, even talked about taking a trip to the Highlands together. But every so often, I'd catch Olivia looking distant, lost in thought. I chalked it up to stress or maybe some issues at her work. We all have those moments, right? One night, we were curled up on our couch watching some cheesy rom-com. We were sharing a blanket, and Alicia had her phone next to her on the couch. As the movie played, I noticed her phone lighting up repeatedly. Buzz. Pause. Buzz again. Now, Alicia's popular, and her phone's almost always buzzing. But that night, every time it did, she would subtly shift her position, ensuring the screen stayed hidden from my view. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the movie, but it was like a mosquito in a quiet room, impossible to ignore. Then, during a particularly quiet scene in the movie, it buzzed again, lighting up bright enough for me to catch a glimpse. A message from Elle that read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." My heart sank. The way it was written, it wasn't just a casual meetup. There was intimacy in those words. And who was Elle? None of her close friends had names starting with that letter. As casually as I could muster, I asked, "Who's texting you this late?" She glanced at her phone and quickly replied, "Oh, just some work stuff. You know how it is." But she didn't open the message. Instead, she turned off her phone screen and snuggled closer to me. Sleep was elusive that night. Every worst-case scenario played out in my mind. Was it a coworker? An old flame? The unknowns were eating at me. But more than anything, it was the secrecy, the hiding. If it was innocent, why not just tell me? The next morning, she was gone early, leaving a note about an early work meeting. All day, I was restless, debating whether to confront her or to let it go. By evening, I decided that trust was key, and I'd been acting like a crazy, paranoid husband. Hey Reddit, the rabbit hole just kept getting deeper. Here's where the roller coaster took another steep dive. It was on a Thursday afternoon when I met up with my mate, Theo, for a pint at our locale pub. We'd been friends since high school, and he'd recently moved to London for work. He was back in Edinburgh for a few days, and we were catching up on life, work, and all the usual banter. About halfway through our second pint, Theo, with a hesitant look, asked, "John, is everything okay with you and Alicia?" I remember frowning, slightly tipsy, and replied, "Yeah, mate, why?" Theo took a deep breath. "Look, I might be wrong and I don't want to cause any trouble, but I thought I saw Alicia at King's Cross Station in London last Tuesday. She was with some guy, tall, dark-haired, looked a bit like a model. They seemed close." My heart started racing. Alicia hadn't mentioned going to London. In fact, she'd told me she had meetings in Birmingham that day. I tried to keep my composure. "Theo, are you sure it was her? King's Cross is always packed. Could have been anyone." Theo looked uncomfortable. I mean, I wasn't spying or anything, just waiting for my train. But yeah, pretty sure it was her. She had that unique pendant around her neck, the one you found in her bag. I took a deep breath. My mind was racing. Was Theo mistaken? But the mention of the necklace made it hard to believe it was just a coincidence. I finished my drink and headed home, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. I decided to confront Alicia about it. As I stepped into our apartment, she greeted me with her usual bright smile, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. "How was drinks with Theo?" she asked casually. Without skipping a beat, I blurted out, "Were you in London last Tuesday?" She looked taken aback. "No, I was in Birmingham for meetings, remember? Why?" "Theo said he saw you at King's Cross with some guy." Alicia laughed, but there was an edge to it. Theo must have been mistaken. I was nowhere near London. Maybe he saw someone who looked like me. I wanted to believe her. I desperately did. But the lies, the necklace, the texts, everything piled up, making it hard to see through the fog of doubt. She must have noticed the skepticism on my face because she came over, held my face, and said, "John, you trust me, right?" And read it as much as I wanted to scream yes. All I managed was a nod, while my insides continued their turmoil. The journey from total trust to total doubt is a short one, and I was now at a crossroads, wondering which path to take. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this chapter in our saga, it's wild. It was on a sunny Saturday morning, almost deceptively peaceful given the storm that was brewing inside our relationship. I was tidying up the study, clearing out old papers and random junk we'd accumulated over the years. In my quest for order, I opened a drawer that was Alicia's domain, mostly filled with her stuff, things she'd pick up, mean to use, and then forget. Amidst the collection of pens, old receipts, and miscellaneous knickknacks, I spotted a folded paper that looked distinctly like a hotel booking confirmation. Curiosity piqued, and yes, I know, perhaps it was wrong to snoop. I opened it up. It was a reservation for the Ritz in London, a luxurious suite, for a weekend, under Alicia's name. My heart raced, memories of Theo's sighting in London flooding back. This was evidence, wasn't it? Or was I jumping to conclusions? I needed answers. That evening, over dinner, I slid the confirmation across the table. "Found this today," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Planning a trip to London?" Alicia's eyes widened momentarily, but she quickly regained her composure. "Oh, that. It's a surprise for Zara's birthday. I wanted to treat her to a fancy weekend. You know, girls' trip kind of thing." Remember Zara? The friend who'd warned me about Alicia? This didn't make any sense. If Zara felt Alicia was hiding something from me, why would she be planning a luxurious weekend away with her? "Alicia, why didn't you tell me? And why would you take Zara to the Ritz? Seems excessive?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "I just wanted it to be a surprise for everyone. And after everything that's happened recently, I thought Zara and I could use some bonding time." Reddit, the stories weren't adding up. Here was my wife, spinning what seemed like tales right in front of me. My trust was on thin ice, and the weight of all these secrets threatened to break it completely. I tried to push the doubts aside, hoping there was some grain of truth in her words. But the idea of my Alicia at the Ritz with someone who wasn't me painted a picture I couldn't ignore. Would I ever find out the truth behind all these half-told tales? Reddit. I knew I had to confront Zara. If there was even a sliver of truth in Alicia's story, Zara would be my ticket to clarity. But if Alicia was lying, well, Zara had already warned me once, hadn't she? I gave Zara a ring, and we decided to meet at this quiet little cafe in Edinburgh, the kind of place where conversations felt private even amidst the clatter of cups and saucers. As I walked in, I spotted Zara by the window. Her expression was one of surprise mixed with concern. I took a deep breath and walked over. Zara wasted no time. "John, why did you want to meet? Is everything okay with Olivia?" Hesitating, I showed her the hotel booking confirmation. "Olivia told me she booked this for your birthday, a girl's trip to the Ritz. Is it true?" Zara's eyes went wide, genuine shock registering on her face. "John, I have no idea what you're talking about. My birthday isn't even around this date, and I haven't planned any trips with Olivia." My heart sank. Another lie. "But Olivia said..." Zara cut me off, her voice soft. "John, I warned you about Olivia. I've been noticing her acting strange lately, distancing herself, making excuses, always on her phone. I thought it was just stress or work, but now I'm genuinely worried." The weight of everything hit me. Theo's sighting, the texts, the necklace, and now this. Each lie was a dagger, slowly piercing the trust I once had in Olivia. "Zara, what do you think is going on?" She sighed deeply, looking out the window. "I wish I knew, John, but something's definitely up." As we parted ways, Zara hugged me, whispering, "Find out the truth, John. For both your sakes." Walking home, the city of Edinburgh, which once felt like a haven for our love story, now felt like a labyrinth with secrets lurking in every corner. But one thing was clear. I was determined to find my way out and uncover the truth about Alicia's web of lies. All right, Reddit, if you thought this journey was a roller coaster before, you're in for a shocker now. Hold on to your hats. I made up my mind to get to the bottom of this. No more doubts, no more second guessing. I had to see for myself. So, I decided to surprise Olivia during her supposed girls' trip to the Ritz. If she was indeed there with Zara, I'd apologize, tell her it was a romantic gesture gone wrong, and make amends. If not, well, I needed to know the truth. I took an early train to London, my thoughts racing with every passing landscape. Arriving at the Ritz, the opulence and grandeur of the place hit me. Was this the setting for Olivia's secrets? Taking a deep breath, I approached the front desk, hoping to come up with a believable excuse for them to tell me Alicia's room number. But, as luck would have it, I didn't need one. From the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of her in the hotel bar, laughing, her hair dancing around her face. But it wasn't Zara sitting across from her. It was a man. Tall, dark-haired, with a familiarity that tugged at my memory. As I inched closer, the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. That man was Lucas, my long-lost brother who had taken off years ago to travel the world, leaving his past behind. We had lost touch, and my last memory of him was as a free-spirited teenager, not the polished man in front of me. The laughter, the touching of hands, the shared glances. It wasn't just friendly, it was intimate. My heart ached. Betrayal from a partner is one thing, but from family, it's a wound that cuts deep. Retreating to a quiet corner, I watched them for what felt like hours, trying to process the scene unfolding in front of me. Questions clouded my mind. How did they meet? How long had this been going on? Why Lucas? I felt lost, a stranger in a city and a life I thought I knew. Drowning in emotions and the sheer weight of the situation, I retreated from the Ritz, leaving behind two people who meant the world to me, their world now intertwined in ways I could never have imagined. Reddit. I never imagined I'd find myself in this situation. The combined sting of betrayal from your partner and your own flesh and blood is something indescribable. But here I was, ready to face it head on. After leaving the Ritz, my steps had taken me to a solicitor's office. Driven by raw emotion, I had divorce papers drawn up immediately. It felt impulsive, rash even, but in that moment, it was the only tangible action that seemed to provide some semblance of control over the spiraling chaos. With the papers in hand, I headed back to the Ritz. I was a man on a mission, to confront and to close this chapter of my life. I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted closure. Entering the bar once more, I spotted them still there, engrossed in their world. The weight of the papers in my hand felt both heavy and liberating. Summoning all the strength I had left, I marched up to them. Without a word, I slammed the divorce papers onto their table, breaking the intimate bubble they were in. The sharp noise drew startled looks from nearby patrons. Olivia's eyes widened in horror. "John, what's this?" she whispered, her voice shaky. Lucas looked up, his face pale, guilt evident in his eyes. "John, let me explain," he began, but I raised a hand to stop him. "There's nothing to explain," I said coldly. "I saw everything I needed to." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "John, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "It was a mistake. I was lost. I was lonely. It wasn't supposed to happen." Tears streamed down her face, but they no longer had the power to move me. "You were lost?" I said, voice dripping with bitterness. "Seems like you found your way pretty easily to Lucas." Lucas, always the smooth talker, tried to intervene. "John, we didn't plan for this, it just happened." But I was done. Done with the lies, the deceit, and the heartbreak. "Save it," I spat. "You both deserve each other." Turning on my heel, I walked away from the devastation I'd left behind. The cacophony of the bustling city outside mirrored the chows in my mind. But amidst it all, a quiet resolve began to take shape. I would rebuild, rediscover myself, and move forward from this pain. Read it. It's hard to put into words the emotions that course through you when the two people you trust the most betray you. It feels like drowning, like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. But as I left the Ritz that day, I also left behind the chains of betrayal, ready to embark on the journey of healing. All right, Reddit. Here's the final chapter of this painful saga. Brace yourselves. The cold London air felt sharp against my skin as I left the Ritz. The city lights, which once represented dreams and possibilities, now only cast shadows of doubt and pain. Each step took me further from the life I had known, the love I had felt, and the trust I had so effortlessly given. As the tube whisked me away, flashes of the past haunted me. Our first meeting in the rain-soaked streets of Edinburgh, the warmth of Olivia's embrace, Lucas's infectious laughter from our childhood, memories that were now tainted, forever altered by betrayal. Reaching the station, I sat on a bench, watching the world go by in a blur. Strangers rushed past, each with their own stories, their own pain. And it made me realize, no matter how unique our stories are, we're all bound by the threads of love, trust, and, inevitably, heartbreak. Tears welled up, blurring my vision. I wasn't crying just for the love lost or the betrayal. It was the sheer unexpectedness of it all. The abrupt realization that life could take such a cruel turn without warning. With a heavy heart, I boarded a train heading north, away from London. I didn't have a destination in mind, but that didn't matter. I needed to be away, to find a place where memories wouldn't haunt every corner. Hours turned into days, the rhythmic chugging of the train, the changing landscapes outside, the kindness of strangers. They all became a balm to my wounded soul. Slowly, the tight knot in my chest began to loosen. I finally alighted in Manchester, a city I had no connections with, a blank canvas. It felt right. Here, amidst the red-bricked buildings and bustling streets, I would rebuild. Not to forget, but to carry forward, bearing the scars of my past, yet not letting them define me. So, here I am, Reddit, sitting in a small cafe in Manchester, writing this out, sharing my story with you. I don't know what the future holds, but I've learned that life is unpredictable. It throws curveballs when you least expect them. But, in the face of heartbreak, all we can do is pick up the pieces and keep moving forward. Thanks for listening. It's not the ending I had hoped for, but it's the one I've got, and maybe, just maybe, that's okay.